From the off, I knew that if I was going to make a low-budget feature film, then the likelihood was that I was not going to make any other films at the same time, even if they were paid films for other people. I'm aware of how completely absorbed I become when working on film projects, and now I wanted to channel all of that creative energy, focus, effort, brain power, dedication, commitment, time, passion, and obsession into my film, and not let any other filmmaking projects distract me at all. I also felt that getting a full-time job and trying to make it all fit around that wouldn't work either, because I felt it would just be too difficult to hold down full-time working hours while trying to make the film how I was intending to make it. So obviously this then begs the question, if I'm no longer making paid films for other people as a videographer at this point, and I'm not getting a full-time job, then where is my financial income coming from to pay all of my bills during this time and to support myself? This leans into another reason why I chose to make a film about an electrician. I decided to return to working on construction sites, which is a world I know very well. My dad, who had previously worked as an electrician before he then moved on to project management overseeing electrical jobs, agreed to let me help on those jobs when they needed extra spare pair of hands. This work was physically demanding, with projects often lasting around 9 to 12 weeks, but it was freelance enough to give me downtime between projects, usually 2 to 3 weeks, to then focus on the film. Being on site also provided ideas, dialogue, inspiration, and sometimes even locations directly drawn from the environment I wanted to portray on screen. During each site I worked on, I saved enough to just about cover my bills and living costs while I dedicated that in-between time to working on my film. Being on site every day around that world and being around the people I was essentially making a film about proved to be fantastic in terms of ideas and dialogue for the script for Electrician. Now, Electrician is not a comedy, but where there are moments of light-hearted comedy relief within the film, mainly coming from the co-workers' characters, these were very much inspired from me being on various sites and the conversations had. So many times I had to keep reminding myself that I'm on a site to actually work and to not wander around taking notes or looking for ideas for my film script, because it did feel like I was wandering around my own 360-degree film set at times. Fortunately, most of the jobs were in central London where I live, so it was a fast and fairly cheap commute for me. These sites were usually all commercial jobs, such as very large office spaces in the city that were being completely ripped out and refurbished for a new company to move into, or a building where works were taking place on multiple floors of offices. It was never domestic work, such as inside people's residential homes. My day on site would usually consist of tasks such as all the fetching and carrying for the electricians of all the materials they needed and placed around the job, taking care of the deliveries arriving on site each day, which could mean anything from one small box of screws to van loads arriving all day, dropping bundles of heavy steel conduit piping or steel tray, or drums and drums of very thick, heavy armoured cable, or hundreds of light fittings, and then usually having to carry all of this up lots of flights of stairs because there might not have been a good lifts available. Naturally, I was left with the tasks the qualified or senior electricians didn't really want to do, such as the deliveries, the tidying up, and the more menial electrical jobs. I would also float around from electrician to electrician, each one of them working on a different task, and I would help them with whatever they were doing when they needed 2 people on it and another pair of hands, such as running cables. These sites were pretty much how you can picture them: hectic places, usually dirty and very noisy, and all the various trades all working at the same time, practically on top of each other. Breakfast time on site was usually around 10 AM. Often we would go to a nearby cafe or a sandwich place to sit in. During the summer, if it was nice out, we would sit in a park. On some of the bigger jobs I was on, a larger space would be provided for the workers to eat in. These canteen spaces could easily fit up to 30 or 40 men. The tables and seating would be arranged so everyone was crammed in super tightly next to each other. So tight everyone's elbows would be clashing and knocking together while you tried to maneuver to eat. The seating was basically long rows of ridiculously wobbly, flimsy benches that always shook and rattled the tables, and it seemed like they were about to topple over every time someone stood up, usually resulting in people's cups of tea and coffee being spilled everywhere and getting dirty looks from their owners. More often than not, these rooms would be located in a basement level or away from any natural daylight coming in, so it would all instead be lit up with very harsh industrial lights, which were usually just slung together very randomly or with only half of them working, or worse, flickering and creating a kind of mini construction site, canteen, nightclub, horror film strobe effect. These large canteens always reminded me of something from the photos you would see of the 1930s workhouses, rows of men sat tightly next to each other, eating all kinds of unhealthy foods, having all kinds of truly bizarre conversations, some asleep or watching porn or something on their mobile phones with the volume turned up loud, constant coughing, sneezing, and with all the different nationality languages talking over each other at the same time. It was always a strange mixture of smells as well, like sweat, dirt, the stench of stale cigarette smoke lingering on the clothes of those who chain smoked all day, the smell of alcohol from the heavy boozes from the night before or even that morning seeping out of them, all kinds of random foods being heated up in the site microwave wafting into each other, coffee, tea, bad breath, and also usually the smell of the construction site itself drifting in, such as the dust from constant drilling and sometimes even the stench of the toilets not too far away either. All this mixed up together without any windows to open to let it out or allow any fresh air in as you try to sit there and eat your breakfast. Hence why I always like to try and get off site at break times and away from all that, even for just a short period of time. It was also at break time that most people started to air their worldly views for the rest of us to listen to. The topics changed, but it always usually revolved around the classics like trying to figure out how much money their co-workers are earning, or how much they can't stand their job any longer, or how they need to find a way out of doing what they're doing, or quickly find another way of earning a living. The actual portrayal of the break time scenes and the conversations the co-workers have in the film probably didn't go far enough really in their bizarreness and silliness. I soon started to realise while I sat there in these canteens at break time that it was not real conversations that people were having with each other at all really, but it was a load of people actually talking to themselves out loud in front of other people instead. I really don't think most people even cared if the person sat opposite them was even listening to them or not. It could all feel quite strange, and many times I thought back to the film One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest in comparisons, especially the scenes in that film where they're all sat around in a circle waiting for their turn to talk during one of their group discussions in the mental institute. When working on site, my income was suddenly quite consistent again, especially compared to my freelance videography work. This is something I had not been used to or had since my days working a full-time job 3 years earlier, and it was welcomed. While nearly every penny was usually accounted for in some way, mostly to cover my time off in between construction jobs to work on the film, I would try to treat myself at the weekends at least with something like a takeaway meal or do a slightly more lavish food shop, which usually just meant a few more better quality options of food for myself on a Saturday and Sunday instead of relying on tins of tuna and sardines during the week as my main ingredient for dinners. I had gotten into the habit of regularly eating tuna and sardines as it was the cheaper and quicker option. And at one stage I was worried about getting mercury poisoning because of the sheer amount of tuna I was consuming. As time went on working on these construction sites and I gained more experience with being around the electricians, I was left in charge with more serious tasks, and eventually I did gain a lot of great practical electrical knowledge, including knowing how to wire and being involved with the second fix stage on large commercial fit-outs. Usually I was on my feet all day wearing heavy steel toe cap boots, and overall it could be a very physically demanding job, especially in the winter, leaving home in the morning when it was dark outside and freezing cold, and the same again when you left site to go home after work, or in the heat of summer when some sites felt like you was working inside of a sauna. To try and save money, I would walk to jobs when I could, and then walk home again afterwards, sometimes up to 1 hour each way. Often coming home from work, I was covered in dirt and totally drained of energy, ready to just shower, eat and sleep before getting up and doing it all over again the next day with everyone else. I would end up spending almost 4 years working on these construction sites and living this way while making my no budget feature film outside of it.